miles from California. I had moved to Michigan to start over. Proud to be one of the first of my friends from college to take the risk and leave it all behind, I signed up for the narrative of a young man striking out on his own but failed to notice the fine print. When story became reality, I found myself alone, afraid, and in agony. After settling in Grand Rapids, I'd be roused from sleep early in the morning with the faint sunrise peering in frost-covered windows. I would dress and slip out quietly into the chilly morning air, walking sometimes for hours at a time. In these quiet moments, I'd catch whispers of a future, calling in a language I didn't quite understand. In my new job at Calvin College, my boss, Ken Hefner, was the first to introduce me to a radical way of living in the world, one centered on service to others. He was a man of deep personal convictions, which he applied to every aspect of his life, from the mundane to the profound. This is where he believed real change in the world began. He used to say, "Nothing matters but the kingdom, but because of the kingdom, everything matters." At the time, I didn't know what he meant. Under Ken's tutelage, I was learning and growing in abundance. My intellectual curiosity was on overdrive, and all the while I was sloshing through endless puddles of depression. I spent my evenings reading alone in coffee shops, smoking hopelessly on park benches, praying that anyone would come up and talk to me. The despondency only worsened when winter hit, and I found myself dragging a hairdryer on an extension cord to defrost the ice that had frozen my car doors shut. The bright skies of California were now faded postcards, colorless in the basement. Taped to the wall of my bedroom in the house I shared off Franklin Street was that famous quote commonly attributed to civil rights leader Howard Thurman: "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." The concept of coming alive was all well and good, and while my personal development was palpable, the feelings of loneliness were taking their toll. I was intellectually passionate about focusing my life on the concerns of others, but had no practical outlet. Counting the months it had been since I had received a physical hug from another person, I developed unique bursts of social anxiety, vertigo symptoms, and a bizarre case of acid reflux disease that had me vomiting almost daily. Maybe I was just weak and physically unable to pursue the convictions and theological underpinnings I aspired to. I feared I would be found out as someone who could talk the talk about doing amazing things in the world but lacked the chops to follow them up. The snow had finally begun to melt when I met 15-year-old Malik on the crumbling curb in front of my house. Overweight and depressed as I was, he approached, bouncing a basketball, asking if I'd be up for some one-on-one. Malik lived with his grandmother 2 doors down. His dad had left before he was born, and his drug-addicted mother had been incarcerated for as long as Malik could remember. We built an odd friendship over the course of the next 6 months that normally began with his faint knock on my bedroom window at all hours of the day and night. We worked on projects around the house, he critiqued my cooking, and I taught him how to drive a stick shift in a nearby church parking lot. Our house kept the furnace on, and he could always find something in the fridge. We began spending most evenings together. Malik's situation made my problems look tame. In many ways, we were exactly what the other person needed. He needed a mentor, someone to listen to him, affirm his insecurities, and give him a break from the chaos of life 2 doors down. At the same time, I think I needed a young man to mentor, someone to truly invest in and care for as opposed to merely contemplating the intellectual theories of compassion. My heart broke when he asked if he could come with me if I ever moved back to California. One day, after unsuccessfully trying to visit his mother in prison, Malik came home and filled his stomach with a medicine cabinet concoction. At 15, he'd simply had enough. My phone rang during work. It was David, his younger brother, who was hyperventilating. I prayed and cursed and prayed and cursed as I sped to the hospital. His stomach had been pumped hours before, and as I arrived, they were putting Malik into a wheelchair and sending him home. His eyes sunken and bloodshot, he gave me an embarrassed frown. He didn't like me seeing him like this, so weak and hollow. His attempted suicide devastated me to no end. It was clearly a cry for help. I went over to his house the next day and found him back in front of the television. He shrugged off my attempts at consolation, and we never spoke about it again. The cards were stacked against Malik from the start. Born into a situation he couldn't change and an environment he couldn't escape, most days were bitter spoonfuls of